Welcome, dear friend, to this quiet place, a peaceful sanctuary crafted just for you. One is so glad you have chosen to spend your time here. The story that follows is intended to be a gentle balm for the mind, a soft melody to help you find contentment and drift peacefully towards sleep. If this tale brings you comfort, a simple like, a subscription, or a kind comment is always warmly appreciated. Tonight, we will be visiting the Lanthorn Garden of Stillness, a place steeped in profound quiet and gentle magic. We shall walk its soft paths under a canopy of stars and learn the delicate art of gathering fallen starlight from glowing blossoms. Prepare to be enveloped by its calming aromas and the deep restorative peace that resides there, a perfect respite to soothe you into untroubled dreams. Chapter 1. The Lanthorn Garden. There are places in the world that one finds, it is said, not by following a map, but by following a feeling. It was such a feeling, a gentle pull toward a deep and settled quiet that led Finian to the threshold of the valley. The air grew cooler here and sweeter, carrying on its languid currents the delicate scent of night-blooming flowers and damp, fertile earth. He had walked a long way, and the soles of his boots were well worn, but the weariness seemed to dissolve from his shoulders, replaced by a sense of peaceful arrival. The path before him was not paved with gravel or flagstones, but was made of dark, soft soil, springy and yielding underfoot, so that his steps made almost no sound at all. This initial pathway, bordered by ferns with fronds as soft as down, opened into the garden proper. And what a garden it was! It was not a place of bright daytime colors, for it lived by the rhythm of the moon and stars. All around him, in gentle curving beds, grew flowers with pale cup-shaped blossoms, their petals almost translucent. From the heart of each flower emanated a soft, warm glow, a light that pulsed in a slow, hypnotic rhythm, like a field of peacefully breathing hearts. This living light cast long, gentle shadows that danced in a silent waltz, and the whole garden seemed to be humming with a deep and ancient lullaby, a sound felt more in the bones than heard with the ears. Finian stood there for a long moment, simply breathing. He drew in the comforting air, which was a tapestry of fragrances. There was the primary scent, a sweet, creamy perfume from the glowing blossoms themselves, a fragrance like honeyed milk and night air. Beneath that was the rich, clean smell of the dark soil, and a subtle, almost imperceptible coolness that seemed to drift down from the stars themselves. It was a place that invited stillness, that rewarded the simple act of being present with a profound sense of safety and belonging. He felt the muscles in his neck, which he had not realized were tense, begin to soften and release. A light, warmer than that of the flowers, appeared from a small cottage nestled at the far end of the garden. The cottage was made of a smooth, pale wood that seemed to have absorbed the moonlight of 1,000 nights, and from its open doorway stepped a woman. Her hair was the color of spun silver, and her smile was as gentle and welcoming as the garden itself. She held a small lantern, though the garden was already lit by its own magic, and its warm glow illuminated a face etched with kindness. She moved with an unhurried grace, her soft slippers making no more sound on the path than Finian's own footsteps had. "You have found your way," she said, and her voice was as soft as the rustle of leaves, a warm and pleasant sound. "I am Nora. Welcome to the garden. You look as though you could use some rest and a warm cup of tea." Finian found he could only nod, his own voice feeling too loud for such a tranquil place. There was no surprise in her greeting, only a simple, profound acceptance, as if his arrival were as natural and expected as the rising of the moon. Her presence was as calming as the garden, a perfect harmony of person and place. Nora led him toward the cottage, her lantern swinging gently, its warm light a friendly companion to the cool, silvery glow of the blossoms. As they walked, a bird called from the deep woods bordering the valley, its song a clear melodic sequence of 3 descending notes that hung in the still air like a blessing. Finian felt the sound wash over him, another layer of the deep peace that defined this place. He had sought quiet corners of the world his entire life, sketching them in his journal, and he knew with a certainty that settled deep in his soul that he had found the quietest corner of them all. Inside, the cottage was a single round room, warm and profoundly cozy. A kettle was already beginning to hum over a small contained hearth built of smooth river clay, its fire glowing with embers that cast a gentle amber light. The air within was thick with the comforting scents of dried herbs, old wood, and beeswax. Nora gestured to a comfortable-looking chair with plush cushions, its wooden arms worn smooth by time and touch. "Please," she said softly, "rest a while. The tea will be ready soon." As Finian sank into the chair, he felt a deep and effortless exhalation leave him, a breath he seemed to have been holding for a very long time. The cushions were soft and yielding, and a heavy, hand-woven blanket lay folded over the arm of the chair. He drew it over his legs, its gentle weight a comforting anchor, its texture a soft reassurance against his skin. He watched Nora move about the small space, her motions fluid and mindful as she prepared the tea, and he listened to the soft hum of the kettle and the gentle crackle of the embers, feeling the last vestiges of his long journey melt away into the warm, fragrant air. Chapter 2. The Starlight Harvest. After the tea, a wonderfully soothing brew of chamomile and lavender that warmed him from the inside out, Nora turned to him with that same gentle smile. "The stars are generous tonight," she murmured, her voice a soft counterpoint to the distant call of the nightjar. "The harvest will be good. Would you care to help?" Finian, feeling a sense of deep contentment settle over him, nodded without hesitation. The very idea of a harvest conducted under the stars in this peaceful haven felt less like work and more like a waking dream he was being invited to share. She handed him a shallow bowl carved from a single piece of pale, smooth wood and a small leaf-shaped spoon of the same material. They stepped back out into the cool night air, which felt even fresher and more fragrant now. The lanthorn blossoms seemed to pulse with a slightly brighter light, their gentle rhythm a silent welcome. Nora led him to a dense patch of the flowers, their collective glow illuminating the ground in a soft, ethereal light. "You see," she whispered, pointing with a delicate finger, "you must look closely." Finian leaned in, his eyes adjusting to the intricate beauty of a single blossom. There, cupped in the center of the silken petals, were tiny, shimmering droplets. They shone with a faint silvery blue light of their own, as if each one held a tiny, captured star. "This is the starlight dew," Nora explained softly, her breath a small, warm cloud in the cool air. "It only settles after the sky has been clear for many hours. We must be very gentle." She demonstrated the process, her movements slow and deliberate. She slipped the smooth wooden spoon under a single perfect droplet, lifting it with an exquisitely careful motion. The dew clung to the spoon, a perfect sphere of liquid light, before she tipped it into her bowl, where it settled with an almost inaudible chime. The texture of the work was one of supreme gentleness, a meditation in careful movement. Finian tried for himself, his hands feeling clumsy at first in the delicate space. He held his breath as he guided the leaf-shaped spoon toward a gleaming droplet resting on a pale petal. The surface of the petal felt incredibly soft against the wood, a yielding cushion. He lifted the dew, a tiny cool weight that seemed to vibrate with a faint energy, and successfully guided it into his own bowl. A quiet sense of satisfaction washed over him, a simple joy in a simple mindful task. The cool touch of the dew seemed to seep into the wood of the spoon, a pleasant sensation that traveled up his arm. They worked in a companionable quiet, the only sounds being the soft whisper of their movements and the rustle of leaves stirred by a sighing current of air. The air was filled with the mixed fragrances of the blossoms and the unique, clean scent of the dew, a perfume that was cool and vast, like the night sky itself. Finian found his thoughts slowing, then quieting altogether, his entire being focused on the delicate task at hand. The rhythmic pulsing of the glowing flowers, the repeated careful motion of his hands, the deep velvet stillness of the garden, all conspired to lull him into a state of profound peace. Hour after hour they moved through the garden, their bowls slowly filling with the tiny luminous pearls of starlight. Finian felt the gentle weight of the bowl grow in his hands, a comforting, tangible result of their shared, peaceful labor. He noticed the smaller details of the garden now, the intricate patterns on the moths that fluttered near the blossoms, attracted to their soft light, and the way the moonlight filtered through the leaves of the taller trees at the garden's edge, dappling the mossy ground with silver. He felt a deep connection to this place, to its quiet magic and its gentle rhythms. When the bowls were nearly full, shimmering with a soft collective light, Nora finally straightened up, her expression one of quiet gratitude. "That is enough for tonight," she said, her voice filled with a gentle warmth. "The garden has given generously." Finian looked into his own bowl, at the treasure of liquid light he had helped to gather. It looked like a miniature galaxy, swirling with a soft internal luminescence. He felt no tiredness, only a deep and settled calm, a feeling of being perfectly in place. They walked back to the cottage, their footsteps silent on the soft earth. The warm, inviting light of the open door beckoned them in from the cool, magical night. Inside, Nora placed the two bowls on a long wooden workbench, where they cast a gentle, upward-facing glow, painting the low ceiling with soft, shifting patterns of light. Finian felt the warmth of the cottage envelop him again, a comforting embrace after the coolness of the garden. He could feel a pleasant sense of physical relaxation settling into his limbs, the result of the slow, mindful work and the deep, peaceful atmosphere. He was ready for a long and restful sleep. Chapter 3. The Alembic of Quietude. The next day passed in a haze of peaceful activity. Finian helped Nora with simple tasks, weeding a small herb patch that smelled of mint and thyme, and polishing a collection of small glass vials until they shone. The day was quiet and overcast, the sky a soft, uniform gray that made the garden feel like a secluded, self-contained world. As evening drew in, blanketing the valley in a soft, deep twilight, Nora led him to the workbench, where the bowls of starlight dew still rested, their gentle glow a welcome sight as the world outside grew dark. "Now," she said, her voice holding a note of quiet reverence, "we see what scent the stars have given us." She lifted a beautiful and curious object from a high shelf. It was an alembic, a distiller's tool, but one made entirely of clear, seamless glass that seemed to have been spun rather than blown. It had a round-bottomed flask that led up to a gracefully curving tube, and it caught the light from the hearth and the dew, refracting it into 100 tiny, soft rainbows. The object itself seemed to possess a kind of peaceful energy, a promise of gentle transformation. Nora carefully poured the contents of the 2 bowls into the main flask of the Alembic. The liquid starlight sloshed softly, its silvery light shimmering against the clear glass. She then placed the apparatus over a specially prepared part of the hearth, where the embers glowed with a low, steady heat. She did not build the fire up. The warmth required was subtle, a gentle persuasion rather than a forceful demand. The whole process was unhurried, each step performed with a mindful grace that Finian found deeply soothing to watch. Soon, a soft, low hum began to emanate from the glass alembic, a resonant frequency that was both a sound and a feeling. It was a deeply calming tone, a steady, peaceful vibration that seemed to permeate the very air of the small workshop, settling deep within Finian's chest and encouraging his breathing to become even slower and deeper. He sat on a low wooden stool, utterly captivated, watching as the liquid in the flask began to warm. The internal light of the dew seemed to brighten, swirling gently as tiny, silent bubbles rose to the surface. Slowly, a translucent vapor began to rise from the liquid, filling the upper part of the flask before being drawn into the curving glass tube. It moved like a captured cloud, a slow, ethereal mist that carried with it the very essence of the starlight. Finian watched its languid journey, his gaze following the mist as it cooled and condensed back into a liquid, forming clear, perfect droplets at the end of the spout. These droplets fell, one by one, with a soft, melodic plink, into a small waiting crystal flask placed just so. Each drop seemed to hold all the quiet of the night sky. And then came the scent. It did not come all at once, but gradually bloomed in the warm air of the workshop, a fragrance unlike any Finian had ever known. It was at once cool and warm, clean and complex. It held the crisp, clear scent of the highest, coldest air, the quiet smell of deep space. And woven through it was a faint, sweet note from the lanthorn blossoms, and a grounding touch of something that smelled like damp earth after a gentle rain. It was a fragrance that did not excite the senses, but rather soothe them into a state of blissful quietude. Finian closed his eyes, inhaling the comforting aroma. It felt as though he were breathing in pure peace. The gentle hum of the alembic, the soft plinking of the falling drops of essence, the encompassing warmth from the hearth, and now this profoundly calming scent, all combined to create a sensory cocoon of absolute tranquility. He felt the last of the world's complexities fall away, leaving only the simple, perfect present moment. He could feel a gentle weight behind his eyes, the pleasant, heavy feeling that precedes a deep and restful sleep. The process continued for what felt like a wonderfully long time, each moment stretching out, filled with peace. Finian did not feel the need to speak, nor did Nora. Their companionship was woven into the shared experience, the mutual appreciation for this slow and magical craft. The world was reduced to this small, warm room, to the gentle sounds and the comforting smells, a perfect haven of stillness and quiet creation. The very air seemed thick with contentment, a tangible blanket of well-being that wrapped itself around him. Chapter 4. The Language of Scent. When the last drop of essence had fallen and the hum of the alembic had faded into silence, a profound quiet settled over the workshop. It was a rich and comfortable silence, filled with the lingering warmth of the hearth and the beautiful, complex fragrance of the newly distilled starlight. Nora carefully stoppered the small glass flask, now filled with a clear, shimmering liquid that seemed to absorb and soften the light. She held it up, and the essence within swirled with a faint, pearlescent luster like captured moonlight. "Every harvest is a little different," she murmured, her voice barely disturbing the still air. "Each night has its own song." She placed the flask on the workbench and then brought over 2 tiny, thimble-sized ceramic cups and a pot of fresh, warm water. With an eyedropper made of glass, she placed a single, minuscule drop of the starlight essence into each cup, then filled them with the warm water. The scent immediately bloomed, softer and more diffuse now, but no less calming. She handed one of the cups to Finian. Its surface was smooth and warm against his palms. "Just breathe it in, slowly," she advised. "Let it tell you its story." Finian lifted the small vessel, feeling the gentle steam caress his face. He inhaled deeply, and the story the scent told was one of immense peace. He could smell the memory of the cool night air, a clean and refreshing note that spoke of vast open spaces. He could discern the faint milky sweetness of the lanthorn blossoms, a fragrance of gentle comfort and safety, and beneath it all was a subtle, grounding note of the garden's dark, rich earth, a scent of stability and deep rest. It was the entire garden, the entire experience, held within a single breath. They sat there for a long time, sipping the faintly scented water, though the taste was barely perceptible. The experience was almost entirely one of aroma and warmth. Finian found that focusing on the delicate layers of the fragrance was a wonderfully meditative act. It required a quiet mind, a gentle attention that left no room for stray thoughts or worries. His world became very small and very peaceful, contained within the warm cup he held in his hands and the beautiful scent that rose from it. The gentle weight in his limbs returned, a pleasant, deep relaxation that was profoundly restorative. Later, Nora prepared a simple meal. She brought out a loaf of dark, dense bread that smelled wonderfully of nuts and grains, and a tureen of thick vegetable soup, its steam carrying the comforting aroma of carrots and thyme. They ate at a small wooden table near the hearth, the soft firelight playing on their faces. The only sounds were the soft clinking of spoons against ceramic bowls and the quiet crackle of the embers. The food was simple, yet it tasted more wonderful than any feast Finian could recall. The texture of the hearty bread and the soothing warmth of the soup were a perfect grounding after the ethereal experience of the starlight. Their conversation was as gentle and unhurried as everything else in the garden. They spoke of the pleasing roundness of the soup bowls and the satisfying way the bread soaked up the broth. Nora recalled a time when a particular harvest had yielded a scent with a surprising note of wild honey, a memory she shared with a soft, fond smile. Finian, in turn, described the feeling of the soft, mossy earth on the path, a texture he had found particularly comforting. It was a conversation of simple, shared observations, an expression of gratitude for the small, beautiful details of their quiet world. As they finished their meal, a deep sense of contentment settled over Finian, a feeling of being completely nourished, body and soul. The combination of the warm food, the soothing fragrance that still lingered in the air, and the peaceful company had worked a kind of gentle magic on him. He felt his mind become clear and still, like a placid pool of water reflecting the calm night sky. He felt perfectly present, his awareness anchored in the simple, profound peace of this small cottage. He helped Nora clear away the bowls, their movements easy and synchronized in the small space. He dried the warm, smooth ceramic with a soft linen cloth, the repetitive, simple action, a final calming meditation. The gentle glow from the embers was beginning to fade, and the workshop was filled with soft, deep shadows. Finian felt a profound sense of gratitude for this day, for the quiet lessons in scent and stillness, and for the deep, uncomplicated peace he had been so generously offered. He was ready for sleep, a sleep he knew would be deep and untroubled. Chapter 5. A Breath of Peace. In the morning, Finian awoke feeling more rested than he had in years. Sunlight, soft and diffused by the morning mist that filled the valley, filtered through the small window of the room where he had slept, painting a gentle stripe of light on the smooth wooden floor. He could hear the cheerful, melodic chirping of birds from the garden, a sound that was bright and welcoming. The air still held a faint, lingering trace of the starlight essence, a subtle reminder of the previous night's gentle magic. He felt a deep, quiet joy bubble up inside him, a simple happiness at being in this peaceful place. He found Nora in the workshop, which was filled now with the clean light of day. She was arranging several of the small, polished glass vials on the workbench. She smiled as he entered, a greeting that was as warm and welcoming as the morning sun. "The essence has settled," she said softly. "It is ready." She showed him how the liquid in the main flask had become perfectly clear, its pearlescent shimmer now a steady, gentle glow within the glass. She then showed him the final, simple step of her craft. She took a larger bottle filled with a clear, odorless oil made from pressed seeds and, using her glass dropper, added just a few drops of the concentrated starlight essence to it. She swirled the bottle gently and the essence dispersed through the oil, creating faint shimmering currents that slowly vanished, leaving the oil completely transparent again, yet now imbued with that wonderful, calming fragrance. "A little is all that is needed," she explained. "Its purpose is to be a quiet reminder of the peace of the night." Nora then invited Finian to create his own blend. She gave him a small empty vial no bigger than his thumb and gestured toward the bottles of oil and the precious flask of starlight essence. With great care, Finian measured out the oil, his movements slow and deliberate, mimicking the mindfulness he had learned from her. Then, holding his breath for a moment, he drew a single perfect drop of the starlight essence into the dropper and released it into his vial. He watched it sink through the oil, a tiny shimmering star descending through a golden sky before it dissolved. He stoppered the vial and rolled it between his palms, the glass growing warm from his touch. He opened the vial and inhaled. The fragrance was there, soft and subtle, a perfect whisper of the garden at night. It smelled of peace, of stillness, of a quiet and gentle magic. He felt a profound sense of accomplishment, not of pride, but of a quiet gratitude for having been a part of this beautiful, simple process of creation. To carry this scent with him would be to carry a piece of the garden's tranquility, a small, tangible anchor to the deep calm he had found here. He spent the rest of the day in the garden, not working, but simply being. He sat on a smooth wooden bench under the shade of a willow tree, the small vial warm in his pocket. He watched the bees hum lazily from one herb to another in the sun-dappled patch near the cottage. He listened to the gentle sigh of the breeze as it moved through the leaves, a sound like a soft exhalation. He felt the warmth of the sun on his face and the solid, reassuring presence of the earth beneath him. The garden's peace was not just around him anymore. It felt as if it had settled deep within him. As evening began to draw its soft, dusky curtain over the valley once more, Finian knew his time here was drawing to a close. There was no sadness in the thought, only a deep and abiding sense of thankfulness. He had found what he was looking for, a stillness that he could now carry inside himself. The lanthorn blossoms began to open, their soft, pulsing light beginning to dot the deepening twilight, a familiar, comforting sight. He found Nora by the cottage door, looking out at her softly glowing garden. He did not need to say goodbye. The feeling was understood between them. He simply held up the small vial, a silent expression of his gratitude. She smiled and gave a small, gentle nod. "May you always find a quiet path," she said softly. Her words were a simple, heartfelt blessing. Finian walked away from the Lanthorn Garden as quietly as he had arrived. He turned once at the edge of the valley and looked back. The garden was a pool of soft, rhythmic light in the darkness, a beacon of profound and gentle peace. He uncorked his small vial and took one last deep breath of the scent of woven starlight, a fragrance he would now forever associate with the most peaceful place in the world. And as he continued on his journey, his footsteps were light, and his heart was completely, perfectly still.